The single father's shoulders trembled under the bright morning sun as he knelt before a simple marble grave, his tears falling freely onto the freshly cut grass. The cemetery was quiet except for the soft whisper of the wind and the distant hum of traffic beyond the gates. He clutched a small bouquet of white lilies in one hand and a faded photograph in the other, his world reduced to that silent patch of earth. Just a few steps away, a sleek black car came to an abrupt stop. A woman stepped out, elegant and composed, but the moment her eyes landed on the grieving man, she froze as if time itself had turned to stone. "Before we begin, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of love to heal even the deepest wounds, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel, Midnight Tales. Your support keeps these stories alive." His name was Rowan Hale, a 34-year-old mechanic who had learned how to fix engines but never learned how to mend a broken heart. 3 years ago, his wife, Maricela, had passed away unexpectedly from a sudden illness, leaving him alone to raise their 5-year-old son, Callum. Since that day, Rowan's life had been a blur of exhaustion and quiet determination. He worked long hours at the local garage, often coming home with grease-stained hands and tired eyes, only to kneel on the living room floor and help Callum build toy castles or read bedtime stories. He tried to be strong, but grief clung to him like a shadow that refused to fade. Every Sunday morning, Rowan visited Maricela's grave. He would tell her about Callum's first soccer goal, about how he had lost his first tooth, about how he sometimes woke up crying for his mother. Rowan spoke as if she could still hear him, as if somewhere beyond the sky she was listening. The cemetery groundskeeper had once told him that most people stopped coming after a year, but Rowan never missed a week. Love, he believed, did not expire. That morning was brighter than usual, the sun casting warm light across the rows of headstones. Rowan had brought Callum's latest drawing, a crayon picture of their family holding hands beneath a large yellow sun. He placed it gently against the headstone and bowed his head, whispering promises to keep going, to stay strong, to be both mother and father for their son. His tears were not loud or dramatic, they were quiet, steady, and deeply human. The woman who had stepped out of the car was Serafina Vale, one of the youngest self-made billionaires in the country. Known for her technology empire and philanthropic foundations, she was used to commanding boardrooms and negotiating deals worth millions. Yet in that moment, none of her success mattered. The man kneeling at the grave was someone she recognized from a past she had buried long ago. 10 years earlier, before the luxury cars and skyscraper offices, Serafina had been a struggling university student working late shifts at a diner to pay tuition. One stormy night, her car had broken down on a deserted road. She had no money for repairs, no one to call, and nowhere to go. It was Rowan, then just an apprentice mechanic, who had stopped to help. He had worked under the pouring rain for hours, refusing payment when he learned she could barely afford groceries. He had simply smiled and told her to chase her dreams and remember to help someone else when she made it. She had never forgotten that night. She had built her empire with relentless determination, but she had never found the man who had once believed in her when she was nothing. And now, here he was, no longer the carefree young mechanic, but a grieving widower kneeling before a grave. Serafina stood there, her heels sinking slightly into the grass, her heart pounding in her chest. The world suddenly felt smaller, more fragile. She watched as Rowan wiped his eyes and carefully stood up, brushing dirt from his knees. He looked thinner, older, as if life had carved lines of responsibility into his face. But the kindness in his eyes was still there. For days after that encounter, Serafina could not focus on meetings or reports. The image of Rowan crying at the grave haunted her. She ordered her assistant to gather information, not out of curiosity, but out of concern. She learned about Maricela's illness, about Rowan's financial struggles after medical bills piled up, about the second mortgage he had taken to keep his son in a decent school. Despite everything, he had never asked for help. One afternoon, she drove back to the cemetery, hoping to speak to him, but he wasn't there. Instead, she followed another lead and visited the small auto shop where Rowan worked. She watched from across the street as he patiently explained a repair to an elderly customer, refusing to charge her full price because she was on a fixed income. The same generous soul, the same selflessness. Serafina realized something painful then. She had built charities, funded hospitals, donated to scholarships, but she had never directly repaid the kindness that had once saved her. She had never looked back to the person who believed in her when she had nothing. Determined to change that, she devised a plan, not to hand him money like a stranger, but to restore dignity and opportunity to his life. She quietly purchased the struggling garage through a subsidiary company, ensuring Rowan wouldn't suspect her involvement. The next week, he was called into what he thought would be a meeting about layoffs. Instead, he was offered a partnership, a full renovation of the shop, and resources to expand the business. The new owner wanted him as the face and heart of the company. Rowan was stunned. He felt as if the universe had shifted overnight. For the first time since Maricella's death, hope flickered in his chest. He worked tirelessly to rebuild the garage, transforming it into a thriving service center that provided jobs to single parents and apprentices who needed a second chance. He created a small scholarship fund in Maricella's name for children who had lost a parent, using part of his new profits to help families like his own. Months later, Serafina finally revealed herself. She visited the garage during its grand reopening, stepping out of her car not as a billionaire executive, but as the girl whose car he had once fixed in the rain. When Rowan recognized her, his eyes widened in disbelief. He tried to thank her, but emotion choked his words. Serafina simply smiled, tears shimmering in her own eyes. She told him that sometimes the smallest act of kindness can ripple across years and transform lives in ways we never see. She had built an empire, but he had built her courage. As seasons changed, something unexpected blossomed between them, not out of obligation or gratitude, but from shared resilience and understanding. Serafina spent time with Callum, teaching him about coding and innovation, while Rowan showed her how to find peace in ordinary moments. They visited Maricella's grave together one bright morning, placing fresh lilies and thanking her for the love that had shaped them both. Rowan realized that grief and joy could coexist, that honoring the past did not mean refusing the future. Serafina learned that success meant little without human connection. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like, share, and comment below. Tell us if you believe that kindness always finds its way back. And before we close, type, "Kindness comes full circle," in the comments to honor the power of second chances. On a warm afternoon exactly 1 year after that first encounter at the cemetery, Rowan stood once again before Maricella's grave. This time, his tears were different. They were not just tears of loss, but of gratitude. Callum laughed nearby, chasing butterflies, while Serafina stood beside Rowan, her hand gently in his. The sun shone brightly, not harshly but warmly, as if blessing the moment. Rowan whispered a quiet promise to keep loving fiercely and living fully. Because sometimes, when a single dad kneels at a grave in tears, the universe is not ending his story. It is quietly preparing a new chapter, written in hope, redemption, and the extraordinary return of kindness.